Nothing says summer like finding a sand dollar on the beach. Let's paint this pretty one by Mike Dearkin on Unsplash. I'm all set up with my DaVinci paints and my homemade block that I did with some Arches paper and some notepad making glue. Here I'm starting out with clear water all around the sand dollar. You can find the video for making your own blocks of paper in the description below. Now I'm putting in a mixture of neutral tint and burnt sienna. There's a little blue in there too. I'm using a number 10 silver black velvet brush, and it's working really well on this size of paper. A little bit more neutral tint. There's a pretty deep shadow right here at the bottom of the sand dollar. I'm just getting some preliminary color in right there. And now I'm putting some regular table salt all over that first wash. I'm going to let it dry naturally. And then when it's dry, wipe off all the salt, and I'm going to now wet the whole sand dollar. I'm putting a little bit of buff titanium. And I got a little bit of Artemis, which is the same as Moonglow if you have Daniel Smith. You can use some purple, you can use some gray if you don't have those colors. I'm just putting in a little bit here and there around the edge of the sand dollar and wherever I see a little more shadow in between the little arms. I have a damp brush and I am scooching it around to get to take away all of the feathered looks of the wet and wet paint. Here I'm getting a little more neutral tint and doing the same thing. I'm being a little more careful here and getting it to go around the little arms. Now it's all dry again, and I am using a light value of the neutral tint color to put in the little lines all around the edge of the sand dollar. Little bit of blue to vary. Here I'm grabbing a little bit of ultramarine blue and adding it to the neutral tint, and I'm starting to work on the little arms. I put it on wet on dry, and then I soften the edge with a damp brush. And then dab it to get it to look a little bit sandy, to let it have some texture. Use the texture of the paper to your advantage here. Same thing, I'm adding in some color on each side of this arm, and then I'm going to smooth it with a damp brush and then add in the little thin lines. Here I'm filling in the little star in the middle. That had a darker value, so I grabbed a little bit more of the neutral tint. And here the shadow is defining the little arms more effectively than actually painting in the arms. We're still going to do that, but that's called negative painting. I'm varying the grays from blue over to neutral tint. And then dabbing it off so that it isn't as dark. One to go. The same thing, I'm doing wet on dry and dabbing the extra pigment off. This one has a little bit more value. Well, then I dabbed it off. I'm getting a little bit more Artemis here. I want it to have sort of a granulated purpley gray look to it. And this color will granulate out into the 3 colors that it is made of. Here is some phthalo blue. I'm smoothing it out there and then adding a little bit more. Sand dollars are not flat, they are like a dome. So the sun is shining on it from the top left, and so the bottom has more shadow. And so the little arms towards the bottom are a little bit darker. Now I'm using my 1/2 inch flat silver black velvet to wet the background again. And we're going to start working on giving it some sandy texture. This first layer is perfect for creating sand in your paintings. I'm using some burnt sienna neutral tint mix. And I'm putting it on the wet paper. And there I added a little bit of ultramarine blue, probably to get a little granulation. There is a divot at the top of the sand dollar that swoops. And so I'm getting the first layer of that on with some neutral tint. I didn't love the shape that I had made, so I'm just smoothing it in and blending it in. It's all dry now, and I'm using a new Rosemary & Co. eradicator brush, and I'm finding that it doesn't work very well. So I switched over to my old one. There are some little divots here along the left-hand side of the silver dollar that I want to scratch out. There are some highlights next to some lowlights. So I'm going to be using this as a first step towards creating those ups and downs. I got out, I think it's a number 2. And now I'm adding in the lowlights. Smoothing it out with a damp brush. A little more scrubbing. And back with the neutral tint next to the highlight. And some dabbing. And then proceed around the rest of the sand dollar in the same way. Now I have a number 4 and I'm getting some neutral tint and I'm adding the shadow along the bottom of the sand dollar. I apologize you can't see this. I had cropped the clip and I can't crop it back out. So look at your reference photo and try to make that shape. With some double-sided tape, I am taping on a white strip of paper, and I chose a little sticker to add to that to turn this into a card. This is my prototype block, and it's quite hard to get the palette knife through the glue. So when you're watching the video, you'll see the video about making a block, you'll see my comparison with two different glues. So I cut it off, and now I'm going to round out the corners. And I thought this could be a nice thing to put on a shelf or make into a card. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.